Well, hello, everybody. Again, I feel like we're getting to know each other a little bit better here over the last few days. Been talking with lots of officials here in Sarnia-Lambton. Of course, the coronavirus, I would say even not just daily, but hourly updated. And I would say most of you are probably watching very closely and looking for accurate information. Can be difficult on social media. Where do you turn to get the official? Well, I say, you don't take legal advice from a doctor, right? And you don't take medical advice from it. So you got to look in the right places. And that's why I've been reaching out to our officials here in Sarnia-Lambton. We spoke with Chief Norm Hansen of the Sarnia Police earlier this week. Yesterday, Dr. Haddad, who is the Chief of Staff at Blue Water Health. And those interviews are still available on the Facebook page, The Show with David Burrows. So good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're keeping well and staying safe. And are you keeping your sanity? I know that's a challenge in these times, right? But earlier this morning, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with our Mayor Mike Bradley, and he's going to give us some information. He met with the Emergency Control Group earlier this morning, as they're meeting daily every morning with updates, and he's going to give us some information on what's happening and some behind the scenes stuff too, that we see a lot of the frontline stuff and what gets put out front, but he's going to talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff as well. So keep in mind, this is an interview recorded earlier today, so we won't be able to react directly to any questions, but please feel free to share your positive comments here and concerns, and there will be information on how you can reach out to the mayor as well. So we're going to take you to that interview right now. Here is our Mayor, Mike Bradley, and then I'll be back. All right. Well, we're here today, a special time with our Mayor, Mike Bradley. Mayor Mike, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I know we've got lots to talk about here. I'm sure your email inbox is fuller than normal. But first, I'll just say, how are you keeping?
I'm doing fine. This is my role. This is my job, right? This is why you're here. We're probably getting 200-300 emails a day. I share them with the primary control group, which is the police chief, the fire chief, and public health, and some others. And we divvy up. Everyone gets a response. And what those emails, in many cases, tell me, Dave, is that the communication at the federal, provincial, and the local level isn't getting to everyone, and that they're not understanding who does what and what are the rules right now. For example, we can't enforce the 14-day isolation. We cannot enforce at the local level unless the Prime Minister declares an emergency. We cannot enforce groups of people gathering together. So we deal with that a lot. And I understand it. Even the non-essential list that came out, I say that because really everything on the essential list, I was trying to figure out who wasn't on it. It's true. A couple such as hairdressers and nail salons, places like that, but almost everything made the cut. So we get people asking us to enforce on the ones that should be enforced, and that's not really our role. So there's a lot of confusion that way, and we're trying to sort that out every day.
Yeah, well, and from the emails, the phone's ringing a lot, I'm sure, and trying to get information to the public, I guess, would be a big challenge. And we'll talk about that. But first, I know you just recently had an emergency control group meeting. Can you give us an update from that?
Well, we meet, Dave, every morning, 7 days a week at 9 o'clock, a teleconference, obviously. This morning's update, Blue Water Health indicated to us there are 7 cases, which is public knowledge. 4 of those individuals are on ventilators, which is a great concern because that's where this virus it's a very difficult thing when people go to the ventilation need. We expect more cases over the weekend because the virus has been here for weeks, and public health has acknowledged that. It was because of testing for different reasons. We weren't getting the cases. And it may sound unusual to say this, but when we got our first couple of cases, I think it sent a clear message to the public, this is real. It's not something we're reading about in Toronto or Vancouver or Ottawa.
Right.
It's still in the community. So we're doing our best to update the public every day from the city point of view, and we leave it to public health to be the spokesman on the health side and Blue Water Health. And I will say with Blue Water Health, they've been very good keeping us up to date.
Yeah, well, in fact, I had an interview with the Chief of Staff, Dr. Haddad, yesterday, and he was very, very informative. Let's talk about being informed, because Social media does and doesn't help sometimes. There's a lot of information. I know in my inbox, I'm getting. I have the cure for COVID-19. In case you want to know, how are we doing to filter that out? And is the media doing their job and keeping things well informed?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues here. Can I just mention with Dr. Haddad? I would invite people to follow his Twitter account.
I've got one right here, actually, and he just said keywords should be physical distancing, not social distancing, and definitely not social isolation.
Good word. And he is very good at what he tweets. One of the issues we're dealing with is the media has shrunk so much in the last 3 to 5 years, whether you look at the local newspaper or you look at everything, right? So it's more of a challenge for us to communicate through the regular media. We certainly do. Social media is the challenge that you indicated. Some of the things that pop up, you can't verify, gossip, rumor, there's all these things that are out there. There is value to it, and I communicate every day through Twitter and Facebook, just trying to give the facts. But it is difficult when people are just spreading rumors, and that doesn't help the community. It doesn't help the people impacted. And there's been a few examples this week, which I won't mention, but social media has certainly taken on almost a lynch mob mentality, and that is happening, and that is not good. It's happening everywhere in Canada, but there is value to it. The one thing it does do, when I go back to the number of emails, Dave, that we're receiving every day, everyone has access in most cases to get to people and to ask questions or to spread information. That has real value. And I've got different people out in the community telling me, I've heard this morning at 7 o'clock, and I'm in the office Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. I said at 7 o'clock that the market, people were distancing. There wasn't a huge crowd. I hear what's going on in the supermarkets from people. I hear different things going on in the community in the parks. So there's value to social media, but it's constant on the communication. What I've seen at the national and provincial level, you need to have one consistent message and one consistent spokesman. And we've seen that with the medical officers of health across the country. They've become, in many ways, many rock stars, because people trust them and they're accepting that they're working day and night to try to resolve the issues out there.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point, I think, Mike, and getting it, I like to say, from the horse's mouth, I guess was an old cliche saying, and rely on certain, like you wouldn't take medical advice from a lawyer, right? And I guess you wouldn't take legal advice from a doctor either. So is it fair to say, though, that the message is enough of the message is getting out to the public, either locally or on a national level?
Being honest, no. And that's part of the problem. If this was 20, 30 years ago, you had a very strong dynamic, what we call the normal regular media.
Yeah.
We don't have that today. I mean, it's scary. I just read yesterday that because of this dramatic drop in advertising within the newspaper business, there are major newspapers, I'm talking major newspapers, that may fold in 6 weeks or 2. So we're still using those mechanisms, and that's good. But it is, it's ironic, and I've said this on other issues over the last few years. The more ways we have to communicate, the tougher it is to communicate. It really is, because there's such a multitude of platforms and where people get the news. I'm not making this. I've had a couple of critical emails this week, and when I asked the question, well, they don't listen to the radio, they don't check the local newspaper, and then what do we do in response to that? We are using social media and Twitter and all those things. But it's really hard to figure out where people get their news. We do have the MyCNN, the service that goes through service free of charge. And it's not just about this emergency. It's about if there's a water main break, if the street's closed, all those things, right? An emergency in the valley. And people should be signing up for that. And that's a good new tool that we have to communicate.
Yeah, and it actually tool we've had for some time. I have it. It's I get alerts daily and or whenever necessary, and the local alerts. I got one yesterday as well. So I agree, that's a good tool to use. And what about the public handling this? And I appreciate your honesty about the media. I will just say it's one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you and do this. And I talked to Chief Norm Hansen earlier this week, and people are looking for that local connection from our officials, right? Is the public handling this well, or do we need to put the hammer down a little more, so to speak?
Well, I've believed for a couple of weeks that the federal government should have shut down the country, that they had the power to do that. They had that Emergency Measures Act, which is a very tough piece of legislation. It hasn't been used since it was changed from the War Measures Act. But people are only going to get serious about what's happening when they realize their mobility, their ability to do things. And that's what's worked in other countries. It's painful. If you think for a couple of weeks that unless you have a really key purpose, say an emergency, or you need food, whatever, medical issues, you can't leave your home. What we have now is there's a lot of people cooperating, and I see that where I live, and I see in the workplace, right? But the reality is, the way this is building, that there is a need for severe action. And I wasn't joking about the so-called essential list that the province released a few days ago. It was 5 pages of everything from garages to just dealing with an issue about a head.
Got to have the beer.
I agree with that, actually. Prince Edward Islands decided last week no beer and no alcohol stores would be open. Within a few days, they retreated because the public saw that as something that they need, and I understand that. That's part of life, right? But there's other things on there, and I'm just saying we have a head shop that's an issue because they're saying that they're covered in that. How is a head shop essential? So that's part of the puzzle that we're dealing with. And again, I'm trying to be fair to everyone because there's no book for this. There's no map that we can turn to from previous. I've been through emergencies and other in the past, whether it be SARS, emergencies in the community, natural, and in the valley. There's nothing like this. And it's not just a health emergency. It's also an economic emergency. Right. And just this week, Sarnia Council's delayed property taxes to the end of May. I suspect we'll do more than that as we get closer to the end of May. But this is unprecedented. And I know that word is overused, but it's the reality of what we're dealing with. It's the anxiety, the mental health issues from people that have lost their jobs, and it's also the anxiety about the disease itself.
Yeah. Well, you're writing, you and others are writing the book for hopefully what may never come again. But the challenges along the way are, I mean, the obvious challenges that are happening right now in front of everybody. Can you talk about some of the challenges maybe that are happening behind the scenes that people might appreciate to know about, but aren't getting the full knowledge with?
Well, I try to do little updates every day, and it is difficult because the complexity of all the issues, Dave, that we're dealing with. We've debated endlessly this week about closing parks. Lambton Mall, which is still open, and they say just for essential stores in there. The issue of transit and the continuation of transit. Windsor's shutting down their system, and I've got a sort of a different approach on that. If we can keep it clean and protect the drivers, it is a needed social service in this community for the people that use it. But that's a tough decision, right? If we were to decide that, what happens to those people? How do they get around? And I would make the case with transit. They probably don't have financial alternatives to assist them to do that. So these are decisions we're making all the time. And all the emails that come in, small or large, on issues, go to the primary control group for discussion. Yesterday, it was on apartment lobbies. Apparently, more seniors, apartment lobbies are becoming a gathering place. Please don't do that. Keep your distance. Elevators, 2 at a time, no more. It's that endless number of issues that are coming up that consume us, and that's okay. And we're trying to look at ways we could communicate better and allow the public ways of contacting us so that we can give them quick answers on key issues.
Very good. Mike, what's next? And is Sarnia-Lambton ready for what is to come? Or I'll ask the question, is this the calm before the storm?
That's putting it. The cases are accelerating as the testing is accelerating across the country and here. I'm looking as we go into the 3rd week of the emergency. I mean, I only declared it as mayor the first time ever an emergency just a week ago Thursday. And yet, you know what? In my own mind, that seems like 100 days ago. And so I think what's happening, the other thing that's happening to all of us, we've all got the same routine and we're basically locked down. It's this Groundhog Day thing that's happening to us. And I can understand from other emergencies that as we get into week 3 and week 4, the crankiness level of the public will accelerate as their personal freedom is limited, as their financial freedom is limited. And we're bracing for that and we'll deal with it. It's very difficult because, for example, the primary control group, we've now been meeting 14 days in a row, dealing with issues as we go along, but we know those issues will change. And I do think as the cases accelerate, if there are deaths in Sarnia-Lambton from the virus, that in turn will intensify the fear of the public. And what we've got to do as leaders is try to reassure the public that everything is being done, Blue Water Health, public health, the city, the county, to try to deal with this unusual and so difficult health situation.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, talking with Chief of Staff yesterday and some others that many of us probably know working the front lines, seems to be a strong, positive atmosphere, all considered, right? We have incredible staff here in Sarnia, and coming out of this, once this passes, as we say, this too shall pass. What do you see results coming out of this?
Well, I think our lifestyle, our attitudes will totally change. And you even see it now, people reflecting on how much they're enjoying, they're forced to, the simpler things in life. Mm-hmm. And I always joke about, thank God for Netflix. The marriages and couples apart today if it wasn't for Netflix keeping people together. But as we get to the warmer weather, and that's an issue too, as that develops, right? People naturally are going to want to get out into their community, and they want, I'm talking to friends now that I normally would meet with, right? That's just trying to keep the social connection. I think our lifestyles will change. I think there'll be a lot of fear for the next year or two. Like our generation has never gone through what the Second World War generation did, or the Depression generation, where you had severe economic and social issues that changed your life and your lifestyle. So I think when we come out of this, there's going to be fewer businesses. There's going to be, I think, a whole different approach on health and even, on personal well-being. So that's going to be the big one, and that's going to take a long time. When are we going to get back to seeing sports, professional sports? When are we going to get back to seeing concerts? That could be 6 months or a year away. And when will we feel confident again that the virus, and I think the only way that's going to be addressed is the vaccine, that we will feel confident again to travel outside our community, to be with groups of people, inside or outside our communities. That's going to be a long journey.
Well, no more Bruce Springsteen's concerts for you for a while, for sure. Speaking of, I mentioned that for a reason too. Our celebrities that we look up to, a lot of them are putting messages out, and of course, recently, Commander Chris Hadfield had put something out as well, encouraging people to learn something new or take this time to build ourselves, if you will, and then that's probably going to help us when we come out of that. So I know my daughter's going to teach me how to play guitar via FaceTime. These are obviously good messages coming from our celebrities.
There's a lot of positive things out there. People doing things. Chris, I emailed him last weekend to say thanks for that video. It went viral across the country, the Astronaut's Guide to Self-Isolation. And by the way, he came down here. He was down here this week on the island, self-isolating, and but having credible people speak. And I see all the things going on. I really feel sorry for people out there in the entertainment business, especially newer artists. Those bands that used to play and artists that would be performing. It's good for them to be trying to survive, but it's going to be a tough struggle. So, across our sectors, whether it be restaurants or all these different businesses and entertainers and others, it's going to be a struggle. And I'm just hoping they have the endurance to survive and continue to do what they do today down the road.
Well, collaborating together will be a big part of all of us coming out of this in a successful way. But I think myself personally, I think we're ways from it yet. We've got to hang in there for a while. Mike, I know you're busy. You got to move on to other things. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Well, I think, Dave, I appreciate this forum. I think it's important that people realize that the community is working together. It's uncharted waters, and that's the difficult part. It will get rougher and bumpier in the weeks ahead. And that's when we really need people to pull together. And we'll continue to preach that message. I will get through this. I just want us to get through with a solidarity at the end that we say that we did it together.
Very good. Mayor Mike Bradley, thank you so much for your time, and please be safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Well, earlier this morning, an interview with our Mayor Mike Bradley, and thank you, Mike, for your time. I know you got lots of things on the go there, and great information in there. It's nice to see many people commenting and appreciating our mayor speaking out and giving some information. And Mike has assured me that we'll reconnect in the future to keep you informed. So just a couple of where did I put them here? So if you want to reach out to him, follow him on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter, Mayor of Sarnia. There's his email as well. If you have any concerns or thoughts, he's always been an open door. And as you mentioned, Mike mentioned earlier about Dr. Haddad, whom I interviewed yesterday. He's the Chief of Staff for Blue Water Health. It was a great interview. You can check that out on the Facebook page. And there is his Twitter as well, very active there. And again, that's sort of coming from the horse's mouth as to what's happening in the Sarnia-Lambton area. And Mayor Mike Bradley, once again, along with the Emergency Control Group, meeting on a daily basis and sending out media releases and information. I'll try to keep getting the information out to you as much as possible. If there's somebody you think you'd like to see me interview here, reach out to me on Facebook and send me a message, or let me know in the comments. And I'm reaching out to more of the officials here in the Sarnia-Lambton area, trying to keep us all informed. And mostly just follow, like, stay safe, social isolation, or more, as Dr. Haddad mentioned earlier in a tweet, physical distancing as opposed to social distancing. Just be smart out there. And if you need somebody to get groceries for you, there's a lot of assistance and help out there. Thank you again, everybody, for all of the comments here. And thank you again to Mayor Mike Bradley. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. I'm David Burrows. Until next time, bye for now.